When Prince Harry walked onto the View set, he wasn't expecting a war, but that's exactly what he got. There was no red carpet, no royal deference, just Whoopi Goldberg sitting at that iconic table, arms folded, eyes sharp, ready to challenge. A man who thought he could rewrite the rules of engagement? What unfolded wasn't an interview, it was a reckoning, and by the time it was over, the crown wasn't the only thing Harry left behind. Because when a royal steps into the View thinking he can steer the narrative and forgets that Whoopi bows to no one, you get a televised showdown that stuns even seasoned broadcasters and leaves. A prince exposed in front of millions. Before we dive into this unforgettable clash, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Do you think Prince Harry was blindsided? Or did he finally meet someone who wasn't afraid to push back? Prince Harry entered the studio with that familiar air of confidence. The practiced grin, the tailored charm, the kind of posture that said, "I've done this before." The applause was polite, controlled, but underneath it, there was something else, a tightness in the room, a collective holding of breath. At the far end of the table sat WhoopiGoldberg.com, composed and utterly unreadable. Her eyes followed Harry like a hawk, watching for movement. And if Harry noticed that, he didn't show it. He took his seat with ease, folding into the guest chair like he belonged there, as if this would be just another polished conversation about media royalty and the story he wanted to tell. But from the moment Whoopi opened her mouth, it was clear this wasn't going to be a scripted promo tour. "So, Prince Harry," she began, her tone unmistakably level but edged with curiosity. "You've been making quite a few headlines lately. Projects, statements, interviews. Why this show? Why now?" Harry leaned back, media smile in place, smooth, rehearsed. "Well, Whoopi, I've always admired the conversations that happen here. Real talk, real issues. And I think it's time we have a bigger conversation about how the media is shaping and in some cases, distorting the truth." There was a subtle ripple among the co-hosts. A glance from Sunny, a raised eyebrow. From Joy, even Ana Navarro shifted in her chair. They'd all heard that line before, and they all knew what might be coming. Whoopi, though, didn't flinch. "Media responsibility," she repeated, slowly, each syllable carrying weight. That's rich, coming from someone whose career, lately, has centered around telling his version of events to every platform that'll listen. Do you really think you've been responsible with your own media presence? The question sliced. Through the air, Harry's smile flickered barely, before bouncing back. "There's a difference," he said calmly, "between tabloid sensationalism and using your voice to correct misinformation. I speak out because the narrative has been manipulated for years. This is about clarity, about truth." Joy leaned in, her voice dry. "Oh, so we're calling it correcting the record now? Because from my seat, it feels a lot more like dragging your dirty laundry into the spotlight and calling it a documentary." A tight jaw, a flash of irritation in Harry's eyes. "With respect, Joy," he said, keeping his tone even, "you have no idea what it's like to live under a microscope, to have your every move twisted, dissected, and thrown back at you. When the people who should protect you won't, sometimes you have to protect yourself." And then Whoopi leaned forward, not aggressively, just enough to let everyone know she wasn't done yet. "Let's talk about that institution," she said, cool and calm. "You've made some heavy claims, racism, neglect, betrayal. But here's what I don't get. If that system is so broken, why still use the royal title? Why not just walk away for good?" That landed hard. For the first time, Harry's practiced composure visibly cracked. "That's not how it works," he replied, voice low. "You can't just walk away from your own blood, from who you are." "But you did," Sunny cut in, her legal background sharpening her tone. "You stepped back from royal duties. You moved continents. You built a new life. Yet you still carry that title into business deals, interviews, book deals. Isn't that a bit of a contradiction?" The pressure was building, and Harry felt it. "You're simplifying something incredibly complex," he replied, his tone defensive now. "This wasn't about profit. This was survival." Whoopi raised a brow. "Sure, no one said it was about money," she said slowly. "But come on, let's be honest. That title, it opens doors. Your Netflix deal, your book tour, even being here right now, none of that happens without the crown on your resume. And I'm just wondering, are you ready to own that?" The air in the studio turned electric. You could feel the heat, not from the lights, but from the rising tension between Whoopi and the prince. "I've earned my place," Harry shot back, his voice rising slightly. "My service, my work, my advocacy, none of that came from privilege. That's my merit." Silence. Whoopi sat back slowly, folding her arms, never breaking eye contact. "What I'm hearing," she said, her voice cool, is someone who wants the benefits of royalty without the obligations, the platform without the accountability. You want to be seen as both the insider and the outsider, the victim and the authority. But it doesn't work like that, and that's when Harry stood. The chair screeched back against the studio floor. The audience gasped. Even the co-hosts looked momentarily stunned. I don't have to sit here and be analyzed like some experiment, Harry snapped. This isn't a conversation, it's an ambush. But that wasn't even the worst part. It gets deeper. Whoopi didn't flinch. She didn't rise. She didn't blink. Her voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Sit down, Harry. You came here to have a real conversation, so let's actually have one. But Harry shook his head, pointing a firm finger at the panel. No, this wasn't a conversation. This was a setup. I was invited under the pretense of a respectful dialogue, and instead I've walked into a firing squad. For a beat, the room froze. Then, ever so slightly, Whoopi's brows lifted, the faintest hint of amusement tugging at the corner of her mouth. A firing squad, she echoed. Harry, this is The View. We ask hard questions. That's the entire point of the show. If you wanted to be flattered, maybe you should have gone somewhere else. Harry let out a bitter laugh, eyes narrowing. Oh, so now interrogating your guests is journalism? These aren't questions, they're thinly veiled attacks. Meant to paint me as spoiled and self-absorbed. Attacks. Whoopi's expression hardened now. You think this is an attack? No, Harry, this is holding someone accountable. Something the tabloids you criticize don't do. Harry stepped forward, voice tight with frustration. You're no different from them. You dress it up in sophistication, but at the end of the day, you're all playing the same game. Tear people down for entertainment. That's what this is. The room was dead silent now. No whispers, no rustling. Just eyes locked on the growing storm at the table. And then, Whoopi stood, slowly, deliberately, like someone preparing to bring down a gavel. Her voice was low, but it carried weight. I've been in this business longer than you've been alive, she said, steady as stone. I've sat across from presidents and people with nothing to their name. I asked tough questions. That's true. But don't you ever come on my show and compare me to tabloid vultures just because you don't like the answers? You're being forced to give. Harry looked stunned for a moment. But pride is a powerful thing. Instead of backing down, he doubled. Down your show? He snapped. Last I checked, this was called The View, not the Whoopi Goldberg Hour. Maybe that's the issue. You think you own the place, and that everyone who sits across from you should kiss the ring. A few gasps echoed from the audience, but Whoopi didn't take the bait. She just stared at him for a moment. Then, with an eerie calm, smiled. Oh, you want to talk about rings? She said softly. Let's talk. She took a slow breath. I've never had to kiss anyone's ring to get where I am. I earned every step with grit, talent, and showing up even when the world said I didn't belong. So, let me ask you something, Your Highness. Can you say the same? Harry's face flushed crimson. He balled his fists slightly, his voice now strained. How dare you question what I've accomplished? I served in Afghanistan. I've founded charities. I've spoken out about mental health, about injustice, and no one is taking that away from you. Sunny cut in, trying to calm the heat. But Whoopi has a point. When you speak in contradictions, people will ask questions. There are no contradictions, Harry snapped, turning sharply to Sunny. What you're doing is pretending this show is about truth, when it's just another platform for public shaming. Joy Behar leaned forward now, her tone laced with exasperation. Oh, please, if anyone's been publicly shaming their family, it's you. You've spent years spilling palace drama, and now you want sympathy for getting asked about it. Harry's composure cracked further. My family left me to fend for myself, he barked. They stood by while my wife was harassed. While lies spread unchecked, they protected the crown, not their own blood. Whoopi slowly took her seat again, posture composed but firm. I'm going to ask you something simple, Harry, she said, and I'd like a real answer. She looked him dead in the eye. Do you take any responsibility for how things have unfolded with your family? The question hung in the air like smoke, thick, impossible to ignore. Harry looked back at her, his chest rising and falling. His voice came out clipped. Responsibility for what? For speaking the truth? For refusing to let the press destroy my family like it destroyed my mother? That's not what I asked, Whoopi said, more pointed now. I asked about your part, because from where I'm sitting, it takes more than one person to break a family. There was a flicker, not quite regret, not quite fury that passed across Harry's face. Then he laughed, but there was no joy in it, just bitterness. You know what, Whoopi? I should have seen this coming. You've always loved to challenge people who don't fit into your perfect little mold. But, let me be clear, just because you had to claw your way to success doesn't mean everyone else has to suffer in silence. This time, the silence wasn't stunned, it was electric. Even the camera crew froze. Whoopi's co-hosts stared at Harry in disbelief. And Whoopi, she rose again slowly. Controlled. "Excuse me," she said, her voice cold now. "Did you just imply that I don't understand struggle? That I've somehow forgotten what it's like to fight for respect?" Harry, too far in now, didn't. "Stop. I'm saying your success insulated you. You've forgotten what it feels like to have no power. To be trapped by a system that decides who you are before you ever get a chance to speak." That's when the switch flipped. Whoopi's voice rose, fierce and raw. "I grew up in the projects, Harry. I was a single mom on welfare. I laid bricks. I worked in a funeral home. I earned my spot at this table." She leaned in. "Don't you dare stand there and tell me I don't know what it means to be powerless." And just when it seemed Harry might step back, his voice rose again, frantic now. "You chose your path. You had agency. I was born into a system that demanded obedience, that took everything from me, and gave nothing back." Joy cut in, her voice cutting through the drama like a blade. "You chose to leave. You chose to move. You chose the Netflix deal, the memoir, the interviews. You're not trapped, Harry. You're just mad that the choices you made don't come with a get-out card, and that wasn't even the final straw because what came next flipped the entire studio upside down." Harry spun to face the entire panel now, his arms outstretched in frustration, his voice cracking under the pressure. "This is exactly the problem," he said, nearly shouting. "You drag someone onto this show, corner them, twist their words, and then act like they're the problem when they push back." Whoopi stood again. But this time there was no warmth left in her expression, just calm authority. "No one dragged you here, Harry. You accepted the invite. And with that comes questions. Real ones. If you can't handle scrutiny, then maybe you're not ready to speak in public at all." Harry's chest was heaving now, his voice brittle. "This isn't scrutiny. This is an ambush disguised as journalism." Whoopi stepped closer, her tone low but resolute. "We're not here to worship you. We're not here to roast you. We're here to ask what others are too afraid to, because that's what a real conversation looks like." Harry's voice dropped to a tense whisper. "If you think this is a conversation, then you've clearly never had your life weaponized by people who smile to your face and then twist every word you say." Whoopi tilted her head. "If this feels like an attack to you, Harry, how did you ever survive actual military combat?" That line hit like a hammer. Harry's whole body stiffened, his jaw clenched tight, and when he spoke again, his voice was barely controlled. "Don't you dare question my service," he said. "I put my life on the line for my country. While you were sitting comfortably behind a desk, I was out there risking everything." Whoopi's expression didn't flinch. In fact, she nodded like she'd been waiting for that moment. "There it is," she said quietly. "The entitlement. The idea that because you wore a uniform, you should never be challenged again. The belief that your pain is the only one that matters." Harry stepped back, stunned. "You don't know my pain?" "No," Whoopi agreed, her voice softer now. "I don't know your pain, but I know pain. We all do. The difference is, we don't all use it to silence criticism, or justify every decision we make." Harry opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. His lips parted, then closed again. His face shifted from anger to confusion to something close to panic. Finally he spoke. "I'm not trying to weaponize my pain. I'm trying to help others. I speak my truth so people who feel alone know they're not." Whoopi shook her head slowly. "No, you speak your truth so you don't have to listen to theirs. So you don't have to be accountable for the consequences of your own actions." That hit hard. Harder than even Harry seemed prepared for. His shoulders dropped, his posture wavered. And for the first time, the royal facade, the media polish, completely slipped away. "You don't understand," he said, his voice cracking. "I'm fighting to protect my family, to protect my wife, my children. If I stay silent, then the same machine that destroyed my mother will come for them." "But they're already protected," Whoopi said. "They're in California. They're out of the spotlight, or at least they were until you pulled them back into it. So I'm asking you again, who are you really trying to protect?" Harry looked around the room, searching for support. From the hosts, from the audience, from anyone. But no one stepped in. No one came to rescue him. Sunny, gentle but firm, broke the silence. "Sometimes the hardest truth to face is that we created the very chaos we claim to be escaping," Harry whipped toward, her face twisted in disbelief. "That's not fair. It's not about fair," she said. "It's about responsibility. And when you're still using the title, still writing books, still sitting on stages like this one, people have every right to ask if you've really let go of that world, or if you're still clinging to it." Joy leaned forward, voice cool and cutting. "Maybe this whole thing isn't about trauma or truth. Maybe it's about you not being the favorite anymore. Maybe that's what this is really about. The words landed like a punch. Harry's face fell stunned. Then, slowly the rage returned. "How dare you reduce everything I've gone through to sibling rivalry," he said, trembling with anger. "You think I care about the crown, about titles? I walked away because I had to, did you?" Whoopi asked. "Or did you walk away so you could be the center of the story without competition?" Harry took a step toward Joy now, fists clenched, fury burning behind his eyes. "You know nothing about my relationship with my brother." "No," Whoopi said gently, drawing him back to her. "But we know he stayed. He took on the responsibilities. You ran from he made a choice, and so did you." Harry's breath was shallow. His hands trembled. "You think this is easy?" he snapped. "You think I wanted this?" Whoopi's voice softened, but not out of pity, out of truth. "Then stop. Stop defending. Stop explaining. Stop fighting. Just stop." "I can't." "Stop," Harry cried out. And now the voice wasn't just angry, it was broken. "Don't you understand? If I stop, if I let them rewrite the story, then everything I've lost will have been for nothing." Whoopi nodded slowly, then asked without a hint of sarcasm, "So what did you lose, Harry? What did you really give up?" Harry opened his mouth, then hesitated, looked around, looked inside, and when he finally spoke, it was barely more than a whisper. "I gave up my family, my home, any chance of a future with my father or my brother." "No," Whoopi replied. "You didn't give those things up. You traded them for interviews, for headlines, for sympathy, for influence. And those were your choices." The silence in the studio was no longer tense, it was suffocating. Harry stood there swaying, slightly, like a man who just realized he was completely alone in a fight he could no longer win, and the moment of no return, it was still coming. Harry stood motionless, his mouth slightly open, his eyes darting from host to host, desperately searching for a hand, a gesture, anything to stop what was happening, but nothing came. "I don't have to stay here and be humiliated," he said, his voice hollow. "I don't have to stand here and be lectured by people who will never understand what I've lived through." Whoopi straightened her papers, not in a rush, but like someone putting the final period on a sentence. "You're right," she said. "You don't have to listen to this. And in fact, I think we're done here." Harry blinked. "What?" "You heard me," she said, calm but resolute. "This interview is over. You're free to go." "You can't do that," he said, his voice rising again. "I'm your guest. I was invited here." "And now," Whoopi replied, "you're being uninvited." Security personnel appeared quietly along the edge of the set, not aggressively, but unmistakably present. The signal had been given. Harry's head whipped toward the audience, toward the cameras, toward the co-hosts, waiting for someone to intervene, but no one did. "This is unbelievable," he muttered. "This is the exact treatment that pushed me out of England, that drove me away from everything I knew." "No, Harry," Whoopi said, shaking her head. "This is what happens when someone confuses being challenged with being persecuted. When someone thinks a title grants them immunity from hard truths, the security team remains still, waiting." Harry stared them down for a moment, then turned back to Whoopi, pointing. "You're going to regret this," he said, voice bitter. "When people see what really happened here, when they realize I was set up, you'll regret it." Whoopi let out a low chuckle, but there was no joy in it. "The cameras are rolling, Harry. The whole world can see exactly what happened here today. You didn't get ambushed. You got questions, and you didn't like the answers." Harry's face cycled through shades of red and white, his mouth opening and closing, words failing him. Then, with a final glance around the room, one filled with disbelief, contempt, and perhaps a flicker of shame, he turned and stormed off the set, security flanking him silently. Just before disappearing behind the stage curtains, he turned back one last time. "This isn't over," he hissed, pointing toward Whoopi. "People need to know what kind of person you really are." "But Whoopi?" She smiled. Not a smile of triumph or malice, but of clarity. "They already do," she said, settling back into her chair. "That's why I'm still here. And you're walking out?" The set stayed frozen for a beat. No one moved. No one spoke. It was as if the air had been sucked from the room. Finally, Whoopi turned to the camera, adjusted her chair, and with the grace of someone who'd seen it all, simply said, "Well, that was something. We'll be right back after the break." The music faded in. The lights shifted, but the echo of what had just happened lingered in the studio. Like smoke after a fire, behind the scenes, the audience erupted in whispers. The crew exchanged stunned glances. The co-hosts sat in stunned silence for a moment longer before finally beginning to breathe again. "I can't believe that just happened," Sunny whispered. "I can," Whoopi said, never looking up. "Some people think their pain gives them permission to punish the world. Today, someone learned, that's not how this works." And just like that, the segment was over. But the fallout had only just begun. Because Prince Harry had entered the view, thinking he could control the conversation. Instead, he exposed the raw truth behind the PR mask, not with what he said, but with how he unraveled. And that more than any tabloid headline or glossy memoir told the real story. So, what did you think of this televised showdown? Have you ever seen a royal unravel so completely in real time, on daytime television? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more unforgettable celebrity moments. Because if this clash proved anything, it's that no title, not even Prince, can shield you from the truth.